Vista Gardening Program. I'm Geri Hoerner, and with me today is Brunje. She's a fellow member of the Bella Vista Garden Club, and today we're going to be talking about drought-tolerant plants with this horrible droughts we've had lately, and we just had severe droughts in the past few years. And we'll also be telling you about upcoming gardening events and what's in our area and what you need to be doing in your garden in October. So Shar has joined us today to talk about these upcoming events. And first of all, we have the Bella Vista Garden Club is holding their fall bulb and plant sale, and it's going to be Saturday, October 6th at the Village Wastewater Company. That's off Highway 71, coming down towards Bella Vista. And the Nature's Calling will have plants to sell. That's part of the Village Wastewater program, along with the Ozark Hills Daylily Club. They'll have daylilies, hybridized daylilies, and they have beautiful daylilies. And they have pictures of them so you can see what you're buying. And it's just a great place to have all these plants available.
Right.
So.
And this is a great opportunity to purchase plants at a great price, especially if you've lost these plants over the summer since it was so dry this year. And if you're watching the program before the 6th, you can still, you'll be able to buy the plants at that time, but if you're watching it after that, they still will be on sale at the Wastewater Company, and you can purchase them Monday through Friday from 9 to 3, and they just keep them in sand beds there, and they'll be looking great, and you can go down there and select whatever you need.
Right, because it's just a great place to hold the plants that we don't sell. Mm-hmm. So there's not too much else going on right now in October other than the plant sale. I don't know of any other plant sales going on right now, but I think that's the main one, to replenish those plants you've lost. And we haven't included a Meet the Masters segment in the program for the past couple months, but I think we finally need to visit a garden and visit with a master gardener and show you some gardens. And today we're going to visit with Denton, and she was on our program several months ago. She's a landscape architect and an author, and she was on our August program. She lives in Siloam Springs, and she's being introduced by Beth Strickland. Beth Strickland is the producer of these segments for the Master Gardeners. So let's go and visit with Dawn and her garden.
Oh, this will be enjoyable.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to see this.
Welcome to Meet the Masters. Well, it's late September, and we're here in Siloam Springs, Arkansas, at the home of Dawn and Dave Denton. Now, we all know Dawn as our resident children's book author, but she also happens to be a very talented garden designer and a much sought-after public speaker. Now, you're probably as curious as I am about her, so let's go find out more about Dawn.
Yes, we will. We'll break your fall and we'll break our bones.
We moved to this property in 1998, so almost 13 years ago. And we chose this piece of property because we had lived out in the country and we had enjoyed the quietness and the space that we had out there. So when we started looking for properties, my husband had this list, and he basically said, no street lights, out of the city limits, and preferably bigger than just your typical city lot. So we found this property, and at the time it was just grass. Grass, a small bed in the front, but no gardens. My garden style is whimsical, and I focus a lot on trying to do a demonstration garden. It was set up on purpose that way. I have a lot of specimen plants so that I can kind of see what these plants do. My business requires me to know that since I do garden design for a living. I need to know how these plants function in the landscape in northwest Arkansas. 2 summers ago, I decided that I wanted to try my hand at growing herbs, and so I built some raised beds and was expensive to do because I wanted them to last, and went ahead and tried just a few herbs. And there's a local cafe in Siloam Springs called Cafe on Broadway, and it's a very local place to eat. It's a fun place to eat, and she uses a lot of fresh and organic herbs and produce. And so I approached her and asked Harmony if she would like me to grow herbs for her.
So Dawn, are these the herbs you grow for the cafe?
These are the herbs that I grow. There's a local cafe in Siloam Springs that I approached a couple of years ago and asked if she would like me to grow herbs exclusively for her cafe. And she was thrilled, and so Harmony and I work together on that. She lets me know what she needs. I work on getting the sources and get the plants. Then I grow it chemical-free, no pesticides on here at all, use organic fertilizer. And then weekly, she gives me a list of what she needs. I harvest them and I take them down to the cafe. My favorite perennial is ornamental grasses. And when I do designs, I always try to give people ornamental grasses. I'm the kind of person that I love driving down the side of the road and this time of the year and just looking at the native grasses that are growing alongside the road. They add a lot of texture and a lot of movement to the landscape, and I consider them a year-round interest. They're always fun to watch come up in the spring. They do a beautiful pluming in the summer, and then in the fall they do this wonderful turning of almost like a wheat color, and I love grasses. The two people that have influenced me the most in gardening are probably my mom and dad. My mom and dad were stewards of the land. We grew up on a beautiful farm in western Colorado, and you could fly over the valley and you could literally see where my dad and mom's farm started and stopped. Dad was a real believer in stewardship, and he did not believe that we controlled the earth, but that it was our job to take care of it. And so he instilled that in our family a lot about caring for living things, loving those things, and taking an interest in making the earth a prettier place.
Dawn, I love your potting shed.
Thank you. Do you want to see it?
I would love to see it.
When I was starting my business, Gardens by You and Me, I was starting out doing custom container gardens for people, and I needed a place to work. And I was thumbing through a magazine one day, and I saw this cute potting shed. And there's a gentleman in Siloam Springs that does handiwork, and I called him up and asked him if he would look at this picture and tell me if he could build it. And sure enough, he looked at it and built it identical to what the picture was and made it match our house, so it looks like the two went together. And I have used that shed so much. That is not a decorative shed. That is definitely a usable, working potting shed. Probably the thing that people would not be able to guess about me is that in the summer of 1985, when I was a student at John Brown University, I chose to go on a mission trip to the Sudan, and I spent the summer there of 1985 working with refugees in rehabilitation work and feeding the hungry. And much to my mother's dismay, I got on an airplane in western Colorado and flew to New York, was in New York for a time of disorientation, and then flew on to the Sudan and spent 2 months there working with refugees. It changed my life, made me a better person, made me appreciate things here that we have in our country a lot more. But I saw a part of the world that most people will never have a chance to see. So that's probably one of the things. And the other is that I was a professional mud wrestler for a time in my life.
Yeah.
from the Lion King.
Yeah, you can cut it off. But I'm telling you that, Dawn, I'm going to have to check on this mud wrestling thing. I didn't know that about her, so we're going to have to do some investigating about
What an
this.
interesting thing.
But then, you know, we learned so much about our master gardeners, and they're so unique and they're so different. And
Yes,
just like
they
garden
are.
club members, there's not two alike.
No.
So
No.
everybody has their own uniqueness about them. So.
Yes.
But it's always fun to see their gardens and to meet the
It
masters.
was a lovely garden.
So-
Very, very
And
interesting.
her garden, she does have a lot of grasses in her garden.
I noticed
And
that.
they do real well with the drought.
Mm-hmm.
My grasses have done real well. And some of my plants that have really stood out with this drought is the caladiums, the potted caladiums. I'm going to be putting more caladiums in next year. In
That
pots
sounds like
and
a
in the
good
ground.
idea. I might have
They
to try
have
that.
just, you know, done wonderful through this
Mm-hmm.
heat and drought, and they just had so much color. And my petunias, I might as well just forget about them. I just couldn't grow petunias this year. I don't know, did yours come out
Yes,
okay?
mine were okay, but of course they had some shade.
Yeah,
and I
see.
use moss around the pots. I just go to the craft store and get moss and put it around the pots and kind of
Because I
protect
use
the
mulch,
roots.
but I don't think it's enough.
No.
And you know, when you water from the lake or you water from a well, it's so much different, I think, than watering from the city water.
Yes.
That chlorine, you know, after a while, I think you water with all that chlorine and it
it's-
just builds up, and they
it's
don't
not good
like
for the
it.
plants.
They don't like
No,
it, and they
no,
tell
they
you they
don't.
don't like it. But it's either that or they die from no water at all.
Right.
So
And so those tropical plants now, when it gets to be October, early October, you think the frost, we're going to have to bring those
oh
in?
yeah, we'll have to bring them in.
And what do you do with your caladiums then? You
Well, I just take, I cut them back and I just
Yes.
take the pots and put them in my garage. Now my garage is kind of heated. I have a boiler that heats the garage, keeps it like 50 degrees, 45, 50, so it never freezes in my garage. So I do bring in my tropicals there, and I bring my caladiums in and just leave them in the pots, and then next spring take them and bring them out
And
again.
then what do you do to preserve them from the insects?
Well, they don't really get too that's not too much of a problem, I don't think.
Okay.
They just stay in the pot, and then I,
Right.
you know, refurbish a little of the soil and add some compost on top, and the next
And
in
they're
the fall,
fine.
I mean the spring, and they're fine.
That's
so.
great.
But that other plant that's done so well is that euphoria, and it's, I don't know, it's called diamond frost, and it just has a little little white tiny flowers. It looks like firecrackers coming out as sparklers. That just P. Allen Smith uses that plant a lot in his containers, and I have one I've wintered over, I think 2 years, and it is huge. It's like a bushel basket now. It's just huge, but it's just so sparkly, and it has just done well through this drought and heat.
It must
So,
love it.
It loves the
Loves
drought
that
and heat.
And what about the annuals and the herbs?
Well, my annuals, I just, the zinnias did well, and the marigolds did well. The periwinkle, the Vinca minor,
Yes.
that's the perennial, that has done well through the drought too.
The only thing I had that worked out in a 12-inch pot was the Levin verbena, and I bring
Verbena.
that in during the winter
Oh, do
into
you?
the garage, but my garage is not heated.
Oh, but it
And
still
I-
does all right.
It does all right, and
Yeah.
I put it out again in the spring,
Yeah.
and it's been doing fine for about 2 or 3 years.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
I don't have verbena.
It's almost like a bush.
Yeah. Now the liriope has done fairly well. I did have to water the liriope this year. Usually the liriope just does well, no matter what happens.
And it always looks nice with those little purple to
And the
blue.
purple flowers. And
Flowers.
they are blooming. They did bloom this past couple weeks with the flowers. But this year I did have to water. They started getting brown at the bottom, which is very unusual. But
Yes.
this drought has just been horrible in this
Yes.
heat. So even
The one plant that was doing well, I should say several of them, are the knockout roses. And my little tip is just to put banana peels. My leftover banana peels, I cut them, or I just put them out there whole and
right on top of the
right
ground.
on the top of the ground. They turn black, and it looks like mulch. And the plants,
roses love
the
it.
roses love
I must
them.
love that potassium.
Yes, I think
it's the
that's what it is.
potassium that we're
And they're blooming
lacking.
again now with lots of buds.
Now that the weather is broken a little bit, it's been beautiful. You know, the end of September, the last few days here, are just wonderful.
Yes.
So I think the plants are kind of coming back and you know, showing some life again.
And
But,
I'm starting to see butterflies, beautiful
Right,
butterflies. So we
yes.
have some butterfly bushes.
And the butterfly weed was very good this
Yes,
year.
it was.
Yeah.
And I had the good fortune to visit Beaver Creek in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and look at their butterfly house.
Oh.
And they talked about how the monarch butterflies migrate to the south, and they live for about 90 days. And they even tag them with little white dots. And a rancher in Mexico 2 years ago found a butterfly and sent it back to the habitat.
They found that little dot.
They found the little dot on the butterfly.
And it's as big as like a pencil eraser.
Yes, a pencil eraser.
How can they get all that information
I
on
don't
there?
know, but
Oh
they
my
do.
gosh.
They
Oh
do.
my.
And they open up their screens and just let the monarchs migrate.
Now there's a website you looked at. And
Yes,
saw
yes,
this.
it's called Beaver Creek Butterfly Habitat Research House. And
they
it's in
can-
Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Oh, I'm going to have to go on that and look that
And
up.
they do have pictures of the butterflies and
Oh,
the
that's
little
great.
cottage that they
I tell you, the
have.
butterflies are just amazing.
Yes, they are.
You know, how they live, and they're just,
And we need those for our plants.
oh, we do. We absolutely need those. The bees and the butterflies are so important, so.
Something else I have blooming right now is my clematis.
Oh, right. There's so many of the plants that are blooming. I saw Bradford pears in
That's
full
amazing.
bloom, which is just amazing. But they're so confused. You know, it was so hot and so dry. And then when it cooled off a little bit, then they thought it was spring again, I guess. And so we have things blooming. We have azaleas blooming. We have the Bradfords. There's clematis blooming.
Right.
I even have wine and roses. I can't think of the name of the plant now, but anyway, there's, you know, it's a shrub, and it's blooming.
What
a
I
little
like
bit.
at this time of the year, then, you not only have the fall colors, but you have some of the other colors as well. So it makes for a wonderful, colorful fall for all of us.
It does. And the lambs there did fairly well through this, but it just needed some water. The nandinas did well with the drought.
And I saw a lot of Russian sage in
Right.
numerous gardens around the
Yeah,
area.
the Russian sage look good. And most of these plants are on our website, the bellavistagardenclub.com. And if you go on the website, there's a little section on the right, and if you go there, you'll see gardening info. And if you click on gardening info, it will show you several sites. One is, several pages. There's drought tolerant plants for 2010 and drought tolerant plants for 2011. And we have pictures and some write-ups about some of these plants. You might want to see what they look like. And some of our members have sent in pictures of things that did well in their gardens the past couple years.
And all of those drought-tolerant plants that we talked about, you have pictures on the website.
Most of them, yeah. Most of them are on the website.
So it'll be interesting for everyone to go on and
just
check
see
those
them.
out.
And there's more than what we've talked about, too, because some of our
and
members...
see what they look like when they're
Yeah.
blooming.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're absolutely beautiful.
And like I said, if you're lucky enough to have the water from the lakes, of course the lakes are getting a little low too with all this drought. It does help than having your city water with that chlorine.
Right.
And the main thing is your probe. I always talk about that probe, using that probe to see if the plant needs water, because your hydrangeas always look like they need water in this heat.
Right.
And it's very easy to overwater those, and then you have root rot. So if you use that probe and make sure that it's dry before you water, because they're going to wilt during the heat of the day and look like they need water. Then they'll recover in the morning, they look okay. But if you overwater them in the afternoon, and they get so much water on their roots, then they're just going to die
They'll rot.
from the too much water.
And I had that problem early on in the spring, so I've really got to watch that. And I did buy a probe to use.
Those probes, I think,
They're
are
handy.
so important,
Yes, they
especially
are.
with this drought. And I know I've had pots that I have watered several times a day, and then others that only need water every other day. But if you use the probe, then you really know. So that's a
right.
good thing to
Some of the
use.
hanging baskets, it's hard to tell with those hanging baskets.
Right, yeah, because they get so much air underneath and on top. So
And maybe that was the problem with some of the petunias this year.
that could have
in the
been. My
hanging
petunias
baskets.
just were bad. So, well, the things you need to do in October in your garden, we talked a little bit about the annuals. Annuals and herbs. The herbs are probably fading out now. I'm doing my last batch of pesto with my basil, and you may want to cut your herbs and make some maybe herb vinegar or herb oil, or dry them for use in the winter. And you can start planting your winter pansies and kale in October. So that's things you can start planting, give some color along with your mums. So, and then your tropicals, we talked about taking those in.
Yes.
And when the temperature is about 45 at night on a constant basis, they don't like anything below 50 usually, but when the temperature starts going down in that area, we have to
we'll have to remember to do that.
Yeah. And I usually spray them with insecticidal soap to kill any bugs before I bring them. I usually bring them in the garage. There's some I bring in the house, but those I spray a couple times with insecticidal soap, so we're not bringing any critters in we don't want.
No, we certainly don't want those in the pots.
And the mums, they're blooming now, and it's a good time to add color with your mums.
Okay.
And you finish planting your perennials this month, and October is a good time to separate your daylilies and things like that, and plant your perennials and your iris and all that. So
another thing that I've seen out in the flower shops, asters. From up north, I just love the look of asters
and
at this time.
And they're drought tolerant too.
Yes, they are.
They are.
Some of them just look beautiful, full of buds this year.
It's nice to have some fall color.
Yes.
So you want to go to bulbs and.
Okay, with the bulbs now, it's a good time to select bulbs in the stores for your best selection, and plant your crocuses and those daffodils after the soil has cooled a little. And we plant them in odd numbers, 5 to 7. And then you can start planting those lily bulbs and tulips at the end of October. And like you said, plant and divide those irises so
and
that they
I've
look
already
good.
planted bulbs in November, December.
Yes.
If the weather's warm enough, I still get bulbs
and with a little
planted on.
mulch on the top.
Yeah, because sometimes in November you find some real bargains.
Yes, you do.
Because the box stores want to get rid of all those bulbs they've ordered, and you get some good bargains. So, and your roses, you want to stop deadheading the roses and just let them go to the rose hips. You don't want to encourage any new growth by trimming them too much, but if they're really tall and you think they're going to sway in the wind, over the winter, you want to just cut them down to about 3 or 4 feet, so they don't rock in the wind. And then in February is when we really do the severe pruning of roses, but just don't try to encourage any new growth that would be,
that
zapped
would not
with the
be
frost.
good.
Yeah.
Yes. And for the lawns, we want to apply the fall pre-emergence herbicides, and if needed, to control those, winter weeds. Seed fescue lawns and overseed the existing lawns, and keep those leaves off of the lawn so that they can get that sun, the warm sun.
Leaves will just smother them.
Exactly, and the lawn should be 2 inches high going into the winter season.
Right. And your trees and shrubs, October is a good time to plant trees and shrubs, and then you want to monitor the water over the winter. If we don't get too much rain this winter, you may have to, add a little water to some of these trees and shrubs you've just planted, and be sure to mulch them.
Okay.
Reserve the water. And the mulch also helps with the temperature. It's keeping it constant, so it's not heaving when it gets warm and then going back down when it's cold. So that fluctuation in hot and cold just has that ground heaving up and down, and that's not good for the plants. So.
And as far as the vegetables, I'm hoping that you're enjoying the harvest, and plant garlic to harvest next summer.
Right.
And add that organic matter to your beds early for that spring planting.
Yeah. Right. And just enjoy this wonderful fall weather. I hope we have a nice long fall, but we can only hope. And if you have any other questions about gardening in October, remember the Master Gardener Hotline is still running in October. This is the last month for it this year, and it's on Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 12 and from 1 to 4. And you just call 271-1060. You can speak to a Master Gardener with any of your problems or questions. And their website also has a lot of good information. That's bentoncountygardening.org. And you can look that up and just pursue a lot of information on their website. And
the October meeting of the Bella Vista Garden Club is Wednesday, October 24th. And the program will be Steve Sampers And he's an Arkansas naturalist, and he's going to be speaking about his organization to our club. And of course, guests are always welcome. And for more information on the Bella Vista Garden Club, you can go to bellavistagardenclub.com. So maybe we'll see you there at our next meeting.
Yeah, that would be good because we'd love to have guests come, and
Definitely.
a lot of times they'll join. But the website is it's easy to remember, and it's got a lot of good information.
Definitely.
And thank you, Shar, for joining me today.
Oh, you're
I've really
welcome.
enjoyed it, and,
I've
and
enjoyed
sharing
it as
information
well.
about drought-tolerant plants and getting us through this heat. And you have graciously agreed to do some of the hosting for the
Yes,
show in the future,
yes.
so we're going to be looking forward to seeing you
Thank
as
you.
a host, maybe
Thank you.
in November, doing maybe native plants, talking about native plants maybe in November, and because they're really drought tolerant once they're established. So
And I think everyone enjoys hearing about that here in Arkansas.
Oh, they do.
The native plants.
they do. We have to go more native.
Yes, and it's so easy.
Get back to nature.
Definitely.
And I hope you've enjoyed the program today, and will join us next month. And until then, don't forget to stop and smell the roses.